everybody. So today we are learning about paper weaving using the paintings that we painted yesterday in the tutorial, watercolor painting techniques. These are mine from that lesson. So I have a warm colored painting and a cool colored painting, and I'm going to be using these for our paper weavings. Your papers don't have to be warm and cool. They can actually be however you wanted to paint them. Just make sure you didn't paint any words or pictures, just colors, designs, shapes, and patterns. Other things that you're going to need for this lesson: a pair of scissors, a glue stick or glue, and this is totally optional. You can actually use tape or nothing at all, a ruler, and a pencil. And that's it. So let's get started learning how to weave using our paintings. Here are some of the weaving terms that we're going to use today. You might want to keep a short little list of these terms and give them definitions while we're working on the art activity. Weaving is a really cool technique that you can use with textiles like yarn and fabric. You can also use it with paper. We will be doing a weaving lesson using yarn in a couple of weeks, but I'm going to show you the basics using paper because that way if you mess up, it's easier to fix. So I'm going to be making the loom, which is also known as the warp, out of the cool paper, and I'll be making my strips to do the over-under weaving technique, which is also called the weft, out of the warm color paper. So we're going to start here and we're going to be doing some measuring. So I'm going to be making my strips out of this paper, and I'm going to be making them so that they're long on this paper, not short. So they're going to be long. All right. So I'm going to the back of the paper, and this is going to require some measuring. If you don't have a ruler at home, you can use anything that will give you a straight edge, like a clipboard or a book, and they don't have to be even at all. Some can be thinner, some can be thicker. I'm going to make my strips 1 inch in width. So all I'm doing is measuring my paper across the bottom and drawing a little line every time I meet the inch. And now I'm going to do that same thing at the top of my paper. So everywhere where I meet the inch marker, I'm going to put a line to indicate that's where the inch is. Okay, now I'm going to continue doing this all the way down my paper so that I get a lot of dashed lines all the way down my paper. I'm thinking doing this 5 or 6 times will help you make the straightest lines. All right. Now that I'm done drawing all these dashed lines, I'm going to take my straight edge or my ruler, and I'm going to put the ruler on the little hash marks that I made, and I'm going to draw my line. Remember, I said it's okay if they're not even. It's okay if you've got some that are thicker or thinner, and it's okay if they're zigzaggy. You can experiment with all different shapes and lines on this project. All right, once these are all drawn, the next step is going to be to cut these strips out of the paper. And if you mess up on the back, that's okay. No one will see the side of the paper. So when you make a mistake, don't worry about it. No one will see that kind of mistake. Okay, so now I've made my strips and I'm going to cut them out. And I'm going to make a little pile of strips here for my weaving. Okay, so now that I have my weft cut out, these are the paper strips, also called the weft in weaving. They're all cut out. I'm going to set them aside because I don't need them right now. I'm going to be working on my cool tone paper to make the loom, which is also called the warp. I'm going to be flipping this paper over to show you the back. Now, we're going to pull out our ruler again, and we're going to measure 1 inch in on only the sides. And again, just like we did with the warm toned paper, I'm going to do this all down my paper so I can draw a straight line. Now, we're not cutting out strips of this paper. This line is actually just going to show us where to start and stop cutting so that we don't cut this paper apart. So now that I've drawn my dashed lines down my longest sides of my paper, make sure that your paper is tall, vertical in front of you. This is also called portrait. I'm going to connect my dashed lines on both sides. And again, if this isn't perfect, it's okay because nobody's going to see the back of your paper. All right, now I want to create horizontal lines that start and stop in between these lines that I've just drawn. So I'm going to go back to my ruler. We're getting a lot of ruler exercise here. And every time I get to the inch mark, I'm going to put a dashed line. This is a lot of exercise on measuring and learning how to draw straight lines, which are good techniques to perfect while we're at home. So I'm making sure that these horizontal lines that I'm going to draw start and stop on these lines. So I don't need to measure here because I will not be drawing in that area. So it's only going to be about 4 dashed lines that I'm going to draw. And once I've drawn these dashed lines, just like we've done before, I'm going to connect them all. And they're going to be kind of short, but again, there to help us know where to start and stop cutting. Okay, so now I have all these dashed lines drawn all over my paper. So I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm going to start drawing where I start drawing, stop drawing. I don't need to draw inside these because that line is telling me, hey, don't cut over here. You don't want your paper to fall apart. And again, it's okay if this isn't perfect. No one's going to see this side of your paper. They actually don't have to be even Stevens drawn. It's okay if some of these are wider and some of them are thinner. That's totally okay. But this is a great time to get in tons of practice measuring and drawing straight lines. Okay. And I got one last one to do. All right. So now I want to take this paper and I want to fold it in half, hot dog style. And I want to be able to see this outside. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to be cutting on these lines. I'm going to do one and open it up and show you. Now, it doesn't matter what side I'm holding to look at because you see I've drawn on both sides. So it doesn't matter which side you're holding or what side you're looking at. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting on these shorter lines that I drew horizontally across my paper. this line that I drew vertical on my paper is telling me where to stop and start cutting, because if I cut all the way to the edge here, I would be cutting this entire strip off and I would have just a strip. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create the loom for my weaving. So I'm going to start cutting on all of these lines very slowly, making sure that I start and stop in the correct place so I don't accidentally cut my paper apart. Okay, so my loom is finished. I've cut on all the lines that I drew, and all I'm gonna do is fold it open. And I'm gonna take the strips that I cut out of my warm tone paper, and I'm gonna show you how to weave these into your loom. And there are a couple of terms here. So where you see where I have these lines on my paper, the places where I cut out, this is called the warp. And my strips are gonna create the weft. And those are two very important weaving terms. So you can start at the bottom or the top with these strips. It doesn't really matter. All that matters here is that you wanna make sure that your strips are using the over, under, or the reverse, under, over weaving technique. So I'm gonna start by doing over, under, over, under. I'm gonna get one strip in here and then give you guys a closer look at how I'm doing this. So I'm just doing over, under, and I'm alternating. All right. So an easy way to make sure that you don't mess this up is I'm taking my ruler and I'm going to stand it up here. Okay, so now you can kind of see what's happening to my paper. So where I've cut the strips, I want my papers to go under, over, under, over on one, and then do the opposite with the next strip. So for example, if I have went over, under on the first strip, I want to totally reverse that pattern on the next strip. So I would want to go under, over. Let me get my ruler out of here. Under, over, under, over, under, over. Totally the opposite of my first strip. Now I know I'm doing this weaving technique correctly if I look at my paper and I see that the cool colors are making squares or boxes in kind of a zigzag line. If my warm colors are making, and let me show you, if my warm colors are doing this, where all of a sudden I'm not getting a zigzag line, my warm colors are kind of all in line, then I know that I have woven this strip incorrectly into my weaving. So my next strip needs to be in what pattern? Should I go over, under, or should I go under, over, over? So the correct pattern would be over, under, under. And this does take some practice, guys. We're not going to be perfect with this on our first try. All of these strips are totally removable. You can spend lots of time practicing how to do this weaving technique of over, under. So if you don't like the way it looks, you can just pull out your strip and try again. So I'm going to continue weaving all of my strips in until I get to the end of my loom, and I'll be right back with how to show you how to finish up your weaving. Okay, so I finished weaving my papers together. I do have extra strips, so if you have extras of your paper that you were weaving into, that's totally okay and also very normal. It's also to feel like this might be hard. It's okay to feel challenged by a new technique. This is new to most of us probably who are trying this the first time. I just wanted to show you the back of my paper where I drew all of my lines. So you can see how everything is looking very geometric and symmetrical. If you would like for your papers to be stuck in this forever, I'm going to show you how to do that. But if you're feeling like you need a little bit more practice doing this weaving, I might suggest you not gluing it in. And that way you can get tons of practice doing the over, under, and then on the next strip, doing the opposite. This is really good practice. But once you've mastered it, you'll need a glue stick, and we can lift where the one strip ends and put some glue and do this at the top and bottoms of the front and the back of your paper. So I have 6 strips glued on my paper. That means I'm going to glue 12 ends down. So I've done the 6 on the front and 6 on the back. And again, this step is totally optional. You do not need to glue these down. In fact, I recommend you doing lots of practice using the weaving techniques from this video. Until you've mastered it, don't glue them down. This lesson can be done using construction paper. It doesn't have to be painted paper. Your paper is totally optional. I do like using the warm tones and cool tones, so you get a color lesson as well. I hope you guys really like this weaving video and that you've learned some new techniques on weaving today. I can't wait to see what you do with this. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.